Hello, everyone. This is Jess, and this is I Will Not Be Silent. I am so excited. Today marks our first episode. We will be talking about love versus judgment. And I'm not by myself on this podcast today. I have a special guest. Please introduce yourself and let our listeners know where you're from, who you are, and any information you want to share. We are so happy to have you with us on today.
What's up, everybody? I'm actually elated to be on this podcast today. My name is Keith Johnson Jr. I hail from the great city of East Orange, New Jersey, where I was born and raised. I currently live in the city of Rahway, which is where I've been for the last 10 plus years. Fun fact, Jess and I are actually cousins. And yeah, that's all I have for right now. That's who I am.
We're just not cousins. We're really good cousins. Even though we may not see each other every day, when I reach out, when I tell you, he is always there and he's supporting. So I'm super happy to have you here with me and grateful. So let's dive right into it. We are talking about love versus judgment. And I know you guys are probably wondering, what is she talking about? Why are we even on here? But let's get into it. Love has so many different meanings, and I don't want to just focus on relationship. I want to focus just on the general meaning of love, and then we'll dive into what judgment is. So what is love to you?
That's a loaded question. Just disclaimer, I'm a preacher, so any question can easily be an open-ended or an essay-style question. But for me, the foundation of love stems from my belief system, my belief in God. So initially, I always say that my definition of love is God is love. But I feel like love and the ways in which we show it, the ways in which we express it, it's always evolving. So funny story. Can I elaborate?
Please. I'm listening.
I read a book a couple of years ago by Bell Hooks called All About Love.
Okay.
And this book actually shaped my perspective about how I feel about love or what I think love is. So the foundation is God is love.
Okay.
But I build on that to understand that love is being committed to caring for, respecting, knowing, and engaging with the people in your community who you say you love.
I like that. And just to add on to that, for me, biblical speaking as well, God is love. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. We know that in John 3:16. And if you don't know it, just go look it up. But right now, love, what it might mean in a natural sense. Some people think about affection, hugs, kisses, whatever the case may be. But really, when I look at love, I look at it as like a sacrifice. It's a commitment. It's honorable and it's respect. And sometimes for many, maybe not all of us, because let's just be honest, we don't always love unconditionally, regardless of the circumstances. So that is my take on love. What about judgment for you? How do you feel about judgment?
So I have a general understanding of what judgment is, right? Just the whole notion of formulating opinions and ideas, sometimes based on facts, sometimes not so much based on facts, sometimes based on assumptions. I think it's this overall idea of putting one's own opinions or ideas on someone else or a situation or a subject matter. It's,
Yeah, a lot of times when we do have judgment, we do look at it like that. So I'm going to play devil's advocate. God does say that we will judge them by their fruits. So there are parts of judgment where it's okay to form your opinions based off of the things that are actually factual. But let's dive right into that, because one, you have love in one corner, and the next corner you have judgment. How do they even go together? How can we say that we are loving people and judging them at the same time? Is that even possible? That's where my mind is like, boom, like, am I really loving someone when I look at what they're doing and I'm judging them? Or am I judging them by their characteristics? What do you think about that?
So, well, first of all, I'm glad you brought up the part about the Bible, which refers to us judging the world or us judging righteously. I do believe in such a thing as righteous judgment. I do feel that there are some situations, circumstances, people in general, where we are to judge and or formulate righteous opinions about said thing. Um, At the same time, I think where the line gets skewed is I think sometimes we associate judgment with criticism. And I can speak for myself, just
Okay.
my own background, you know what I mean? Growing up in the church, and when you hear judgment, I'll speak for myself. When I hear judgment, or once upon a time, I've done a lot of growing involving. Once upon a time, when I heard the term judgment, it automatically translated to criticism, that I'm supposed to criticize a thing or think harshly about a thing. And I think sometimes we pair those two things together because I felt like it was my obligation out of my love for God and God's word. Sometimes I felt like it was my obligation to criticize people, so
And since you're talking about criticism, which is a whole nother topic, but we are still in line with the same thing. People think judging is giving your own opinion, when it's actually judging is supposed to be about making an informed decision based off of true knowledge and facts. Half the time that we are judging, I don't necessarily know if we know the true story or if we even know who we're talking about. Can I say, just because I've spent time with you, that I know everything that has happened on the course of your life, or what you've done to make the choices that you have made? And I think that's the problem. We are taking the words of what we feel and adding our own definition to judgment.
Yeah.
It never says that I'm supposed to criticize or look upon people or make my own assumptions, the very least my own assumptions about anything that has to do with you. The question is, why do we do that? Why do we feel like we have the right to judge people? And then also on top of it, we say, well, I'm just showing them love. That's true love. How is that love? At what point do we ever feel love when someone is criticizing us?
Yeah. And I just want to, so I have a lot to say there. But I want to piggyback off of the last thing you said. I do want to make it clear that I believe that love comes with critique. I think there's a difference, I do believe that love comes with critique. I think we should have that access to the people that we love, to be able to hold them accountable. At the same token, I think something you said is very key. You talked about making informed decisions or informed judgments. And I think sometimes we see the world or people or situations as very black and white. Listen, the older I get, the more I understand that life has so many nuances. I won't say gray areas, I'll call them nuances. Life has so many nuances, and I think in order to really make informed decisions about people, their lives, their situations, you have to know their story. You know what I mean? And it doesn't negate the fact that sometimes we have made poor decisions, we have made poor choices. I don't think that our judgment or our critique of people should sit in that type of seat of judgment. You know what I mean? But I think we really have to get to know people's story, get to know who people are, why people make the decisions they make, why people navigate life the way they navigate life.
And the point that you just made is so true. Like, do we have enough time to sit there and get to know people? No, we're not taking the time to. We're just immediately going to the first thing that we can think of and coming to a conclusion.
Yeah.
And one thing that I love about the Bible, and let me just tell you something, it put me into my place. I feel like we have to be really honest. We have all judged people at one point and another, thinking that we knew them because of the way they looked, whatever they said, or just based off of what someone else said. That's the key. Half the time we're getting our information from people who were not even there.
Fact.
That's a whole nother story. I'm not even go there.
Fact.
But to be honest, what really had me sit down and pretty much keep my mouth closed is that scripture about how can you cast the mote out of your brother's eye when you have a beam in your eye? Hold up. If God was to crack open these walls right now with Jess and expose my own skeletons in my closet, I don't think I would be saying anything. And neither do I think any of us would. We are going off of what we see other people doing. We are following other people. So those kind of tendencies, it's really bad behavior, because if we really think about it, there's so much grace that he's been giving us. There's so many times that I've made poor decisions.
Yeah.
I've made mistakes. And I like that you said critique. There's love with critique. My thing about critique, people like to use it negatively, and that's why it sounds like a negative and factor that happens. But the truth be told is, if you have love with someone, even if you're critiquing me, it's going to not feel so hurtful and painful. People feel like it's not going to always feel good. Yeah. But take the time out to really think about how you would want to be treated would impact the next person that you're speaking to. So that was just a point I wanted to bring out. But the truth is, we really have no business judging people off of what we see or what we believe. And, casting, that scripture talking about cast ye the first stone. I'm going to let you chime in, but really, let's be honest with ourselves. Like, we look good. We can put our fit on. We have the clothes, everything to match. But the truth, there's something that each and every one of us do. Deli.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was literally just thinking about that scripture, that whole situation where I think that was one of Jesus's greatest challenges that he presented as a thought process.
Of course.
When he says, all right, listen, the person who doesn't have any sin, right? You throw the first stone. And it literally says that one by one, from the oldest to the youngest person, everybody literally started walking away. No one was in position to throw the first stone. And I think it causes us to take a look within. You know what I mean? We have to put a mirror against ourselves. And I think the important thing there is that anytime we present a critique, and I'm going to say in a positive sense, anytime we present a positive critique, I think the motive always has to be rooted in love, right? So I think you asked before, do they coexist or how can they coincide? And I think it begins with having a healthy perspective of what judgment is or what critique is. You know what I mean? And how we flow in that vein.
And you know what's so funny about everything you're saying is I had got a message, and the message was mind your own business and follow me. I thought that was so, like really God has a sense of humor. He's basically saying sometimes we're spending way too much time in other people's business.
Absolutely.
And not focusing on ourselves. That's the first problem. And you made a good point. It can coincide. But the question is, when you're judging or when you're making these decisions, do you have everything that you need? Like, is your house perfect? Oftentimes we'll see people, I'm not the cleanest person, but we have moments, our houses become, a wreck or whatever. And I'm just using this example. And we'll be looking at, especially social media. I mean, listen, I know we're on social media and that's just where we are in this day and time, but social media can be so negative because you'll look at someone's house and you'll talk about, oh my goodness, I can't believe their house is like that. And you over there in your bedroom, didn't brush your teeth off. Listen, I'm so sorry.
No,
gosh, laundry not done. And that, I know, I'm ridiculous. But I'm serious. So why do you have the time to be talking about that person? It really caught me off guard. It was like, just mind your own business. Like, stop worrying about their issues and their relationship. It's one thing if someone, asks you for advice. It's another thing if you just taking your time, which is idle time, to go look around on people's social medias, on people's pages, to gather information to see what they're doing. I don't know about you, but I really don't have time for that. God tells me to, offer information. That's a different story, but that's the problem. Some people are just busybodies. Busybodies, like, in other people's matters. Focus on yourself. I said, because when you do, you'll realize that judgment will also be less. If that makes sense. I don't think Jesus was walking around, I'm just going to go into the village and see what this person is doing. Right.
I mean, like the nosy neighbor, always looking out the window, trying to find something. It's like an HOA, folks.
Oh, gosh. Let's not, look, we can't even go there, but it's true. It's like, Why are we spending so much time on things that just does not even matter? What does matter is that your household bill is taken care of. Don't get me started on that. Stop judging people on how they spend their money. And we know we all do not always save correctly, and we can splurge. Listen, I'm not going into that. People's clothes, people's outfits, whatever, however they wear, even their relationship. I'm so happy about this conversation because this is me being real with you. I really had to sit back and evaluate myself and say, okay, you have family, you have friends, different things happen. And it used to weigh on me, and I wanted to give my opinion. And I realized I was like, do I really have time for this? I really have a lot of things I can get together for myself.
You said there has to be a difference with how we live, how we show up in the world, how we present ourselves, right? Like the Bible says, we're in the world, but we're not of the world.
Exactly.
It speaks to how we navigate life being believers, right? We show up differently. I automatically think about 1 Corinthians 13, right? Where it talks about, it says love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, right? Love does not boast. And I say that to say that if we are of the world, right, or if we are not presenting ourselves in a way that represents Christ, we're not drawing a distinct line or a fine line between how we show or represent the love of Christ versus how someone who's not really rooted in love would show up or present themselves or respond to certain situations.
Yeah, how can we be an example if we're not leaving or leading lives ourselves that are of that example? It's just very simple. You can't tell someone to do something that you're not doing. That's where like the judgment has to almost kind of cease. I'm not saying to not make informed decisions, but make sure that you're just not calling the other person out and you're not on top of your game. You're not where you need to be. I just think we have to really evaluate all aspects of what judgment and love is. And love, like you said, is patient, it's kind. So think about the many times where it might not be the same situation. It could be a totally different situation. Like, for example, let me just talk about sweets. I just love sweets. And that's something that is my own, like, downfall, because I will go in the middle of the night and I'll eat some sweets. Now, I might tell my husband, like, stop eating sweets. Why are you eating? You eat too many sweets. No one knows. I caught myself, and it was like such a conviction. It was just like, Jessica, if you don't leave him alone and go mind your business like you wasn't sneaking that cookie last night. And I got like so caught off guard, and I'm just like, wow. So, oftentimes I realize I have to just pause for a second and really think about what I'm saying before I do it. How can love and judgment exist? Yes, it can. And let's talk about how. How does those two work together without causing issues? The first thing is when you love someone, you have to consider what the love is that you're displaying. You said your motivation. Does your motivation coincide with the same kind of love that God has? If it does not, then you need to retract your step for a second. I think the first part is we need to think about, to all the church mothers out there that might have, church mothers, church people, see the grandmas who was backhanding and slapping people. Y'all know y'all was wrong for hitting people, but y'all had a point. Sometimes we talk too much, and we just need to first take a moment and think about what we're saying, so it can be the right words out of our mouths. And I think with the social media, and I want you to chime in, I think because it's just a free for all, we just go up there typing any and everything. Like, we just like anything that comes out of our mouth doesn't even make sense. I'm just gonna be honest with you. So like, I've seen some of my posts, and I just was like, I should have thought about that, before putting out there. And I think we have to stop. In order for love and judgment to work together, stop for a second and think about what you're doing before you're doing it. There should be like steps to this, so you don't actually implicate yourself into saying something wrong.
Absolutely.
Because what happens is, and sometimes why we can't get ourselves together in life, and I'm just on the roll right now, I'm just going to tell you that. Listen, we can't get ourselves together in life because we're so busy focusing on other people, which I said, but also is because we're not even working on ourselves. So this is why we need to stop for a second and think about what we're saying, what we're doing, and where we can be better at, individuals anyway in life before we start talking. And then now, if you want to start to cast your judgment and your love and be helpful, just make sure there's nothing that is a hindrance to the person you're helping. Because I think that's why judgment doesn't work. Sometimes because your motivation is wrong,
Right.
So chime in on that. Like, we might have an issue. Like, I have an issue with you.
Right.
That's the first thing. Hold up. You judges, if you have an issue with someone, there is no reason why you should necessarily be judging them. I'm going to tell you why. Because it's going to be biased.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, chime in.
Absolutely. And no, it's funny. I have to go here because it's just who I am. Personally, Holy Spirit convicts me when I start working in that vein of judgment. When I know I'm being harsh or critical because I have an ought against somebody, you know what I mean? Or because I'm upset with them.
Yep.
And when I say things spitefully, you know what I mean? Holy Spirit convicts me like, bro, you know you're wrong. You know what I mean? And I think the reason why that's important is because, again, it goes back to this idea of everything I say or do, I want it to be rooted in love. I want the motive and the intention to be pure, right? And then we talk about this whole idea of love and judgment coexisting. You mentioned something earlier. You had alluded to it. I don't think you went all the way there, but I would like to kind of...
I'm all over the place. Go ahead, please.
We were talking, you mentioned something about judgment, right? Or critique or criticism and the ways that it shows up in family or any different relationship dynamics. And I brought that up because I want to kind of start with this fact that, and this is something I had to learn, that the people who are in my circle, right, who love me and I love them, I absolutely think that they should have that type of access to me. You know what I mean? To be able to righteously judge my thought, my decisions, my actions. I feel like that's our responsibility or our commitment to love in this relationship, be it platonic, be it, family relationships, whatever. I think that's the commitment that we make when we say we love someone, to be able to have that access to them, to hold them accountable. So I feel like that's one of the ways in which they sort of coincide or coexist.
So are you saying that strangers cannot judge one another?
They can, but I feel like what makes it effective is the fact that you have a relationship. Because they can judge me all day. It doesn't mean anything to me. But it becomes effective. It means something to me when it comes from the people who are committed to my growth. You know what I mean? The people who are committed to my life, the people who are committed to seeing me be a better person, because I know that the motive for them critiquing me is rooted in love.
Which is a great point, because I think that's how God judges us. He doesn't judge with the intentions of seeing us fail.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are judging people like, oh, there they go again. See, that's because they did this. That's because they did that. Yeah. So you felt like they weren't going to achieve that goal or that success, or they were going to mess up. And it's more so of, I told you so, more than that, hey, I want to see you grow. I want to see you do good. So I had to check myself. Even with the ones that I love, my close friends and family, I had to make sure that it wasn't like, I told you so.
See, yeah.
Because that's the part I wanted to dive into next, is like, when we do judge someone without love, how does that impact you? How does that help them? How does that hurt them? Can you think of a time that you were judged based off of what people said or people believe? What did that do to your spirit in general?
Absolutely. So it did a number of things. I think the first thing it did was, just because of the way that I'm wired, if you know anything about me, if you say I can't do something, now I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Whether it's because of spite or because I feel like I have something to prove.
Okay.
Like, if you say, hey, you can't turn that knob off, now I'm turning the knob off just on principle.
Okay.
And I think sometimes people's judgment, people's critique with malintent, sometimes it's driven me to overachieve, right? But not not just because like I felt like I could do it, but because I felt like I had to prove a point. And sometimes you drive yourself into a hole trying to prove people's words otherwise, right? Trying to prove that what people say or what people think is something other than. But the way that dynamic shifted for me is like, now I don't really care. You know?
What people say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny that you said that. I can kind of like, remember similar experiences of growing up, and we grew up in the same background kind of sense.
Yes,
let's just be real. It's enough that you are judged with people that you don't know. But I think it hurts a lot more when you have family and friends and loved ones who judge you in such a negative way, and you are leaning on them because that's your blood. That's the people that are supposed to support you. So it hits a little bit different.
Absolutely.
I may not know you down the block, down the street, or that neighbor, but you're my brother, or you're my sister or my cousin. That hurts differently when you think of me in this manner without even talking to me. My experience, I pushed harder. Yes, I did. But what I realized is I'm pushing not harder for myself, but to prove my worth. When I shouldn't have to prove myself to anyone but God. So that became a negative impact because I realized like I wasn't really being my authentic self. I was being the self that I thought people wanted me to be.
Exactly.
And that is not the true definition of love. You cannot decide how a person should dress, live, and put them in a box and make them to be what you want them to be. That's not loving them. The point is we are individuals and we have to have the life and the chance to be able to explore who we really are. So growing up, I pushed harder, but I failed so many times because now my motivation changed to their motivation. But I think the worst part about that, I realized how broken I was and how many scrapes I had that was never treated off of people's words.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. Like those words really hurt you. When I've heard people, and this is raw, like I'm sharing, like I've heard people tell me what I can't do. Let's just talk about things in which people have said to me. In my experiences growing up, it's just certain people can only have this ability. Certain people can only do certain things, and that will destroy you. Number one, singing, music. I love music and I love singing, but I went through such a part in my life where because my voice did not sound like the next person,
right,
that doesn't mean I don't have a voice. It's just not your voice.
Right.
It's as simple as that. I had to learn how to use my voice that God gave me because people were judging me on the way I sound and how I portray. And that damaged me. That pushed me almost 7 years in of not doing something that I love to do because I'm worried about what other people thought of me and how I sound. And then I realized one day after 7 years that it does not even matter because it's my voice. And I think that's what people have to realize, especially family and friends. Like, we're supposed to be together. I don't understand where we go wrong in this. Why do we do this to one another? Why do we hurt our family members with judgment?
This is such a broad topic now that you say it. Something I had to learn was that just because somebody is blood related to you, right? And your genetic makeup, your DNA, the whole science behind it. This person is my blood relative. It does not make them committed to this journey of love with you. You know what I mean? Especially when they haven't done the work themselves to be rooted in love, right? So that everything they do is out of this seat of love, out of this position of love. You know what I mean? And why did I say that? I said that because I think, to your point, I had to learn this. I believe that God has people. God has a community of people. God has your people. Some people refer to it as your tribe. Okay. I believe that God has an assigned tribe of people who are committed to loving you, committed to your process, and committed to celebrating the gift that you are. regardless of whether they're blood related, you know what I mean, or not. So I think it absolutely hurts more when it's people in your family, right? People you're blood related to. But I think we put that expectation on people. And that's something we have to learn.
That's a good thing. Why are we expecting them to be better than the next person? I think we should. And I think one of the biggest issues that we rely on men more than we rely on God. We rely on people more than we rely on God. They have no part into how you wake up in the morning. I like what my husband says, but sometimes I don't like when he says it. They don't pay your bills. Why are we so fixated on getting approval from people to the point that when they say things and they judge us, whether they're family or friends, it hurts. So I think you're right. I just think the point is so people know that it does hurt though. So be careful and be mindful, because sometimes we're not even receiving our blessings because we're out there judging people and we're being negative people. Now that I have grown, I know not to necessarily worry about what people think, whether they're family, friends or not. Like, I love you, but my journey is my journey, and your journey is your journey. If God has given you a word from me, which people often do that. Don't get me started on giving a word. Listen, can y'all actually give a word that's accurate? Can y'all actually give me something that nobody knows?
Started.
You listen, you see me doing X, Y, and Z, you gonna tell me. Stop playing this game. Don't get me, listen,
Facts.
Don't get me started on that. You don't have to give me a word unless you know it's God. And if it is God, he's going to also reveal it. Why is he only talking to you? Let me start. He only talking to you about me. Right. I'm just trying to understand that.
Right.
But I'm not saying that because even I've had words to give people, but the words, were very precise. God does not err. Why is our judgment so vague that we don't really have time to get all the information? So the question becomes now, we know that if we judge wrong, it hurts. We know that we don't have to take every judgment. The question is, when should we judge? As we wrap it up, when should we judge? And just ways we can judge with love at this point.
I'm going to sort of go back to something I said earlier, and this is my honest, genuine belief. I believe that when we judge people in a healthy way, when we judge righteously, I believe that we do that in a seat of, I believe it comes from a relational standpoint. Okay. I believe that you have to have genuine, authentic relationship with God, number one, right? And then people as well. There are some people who, you can see their life from a distance. You can make assumptions all day long. But if I am not committed to that person's personal journey, their personal growth, I'm only going off of assumption. You know what I mean? But I feel like doing that in a healthy way requires us to have established healthy relationships with the people who give us that access to them.
So judgment is not an opinion.
According to Merriam-Webster, yes.
So if we're talking about how we should judge people, it should not be based off of our opinion.
Opinion is not always bad. Okay.
Why do you say that?
Because I think what makes it an opinion is the notion that it's not a fact, it's not proven, but it could be hitting at something, you know what I mean? It could be sort of in the ballpark of, what we're trying to get at.
But speaking from relationships, as you develop relationship with people and you get to know them, it should be less of maybe our opinion and more of what we know about the person, so we can rightly divide. The Bible says rightly divide the word. Rightly divide the person that you're talking about. We can look at them and we can see things. Yes, we can see that, okay, then this is not a good scenario, but I'm just going to put myself in it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just do that so no one feels offended. If I keep eating those cookies, y'all see me now, see me 6 months from now. Okay, that weight is going to shift. Okay, so I'm already making a conscious decision to stop eating so late at night. Now, that is something that is a fact, right? It's a fact that if you put your hand on fire, you're going to get burned. Okay.
Right.
Now, the opinion part of if someone was to say, hey, Jess, you're not going to ever be in the shape that you want to be. Your body's not going to be what you want it to be. Now, that particular opinion is not a good form of judgment, because now you're casting out things that are not necessarily with love, and it's based off of what you feel of me. So when we're talking about opinions in that regards, that's not necessarily a good way to do it. Now, if someone were to say, hey, Jess, I know you see yourself this way, but you're beautiful, you're awesome, that's their opinion of me. Now, that is more so something that I can see what you're saying, why it does matter, because it's more enhancing, it's positive, it's uplifting. My point is, I know everything is not going to always sound the best.
Yeah.
And I've had some people who gave me good judgment, like, I think you're too hard on yourself. Now, that's not the easiest thing to hear, but that was a good judgment, and that did help me. That helped me to rethink how I view myself. So I think you're saying exactly right, that opinions can help and they can matter. They need to be with love, though.
I agree 100%.
What were you going to say? Because I saw you like wanting to chime in there. What were you going to say?
No, I think you really I think you brought it home, and you mentioned the analogy, right? It's a fact that if you touch fire, right, you're going to get burned. I think the opinion aspect is, suppose I say, hey, Jess, I think you're too close to the fire, right? Before you even touch it, we know that if you touch it, you're getting burned, and I think the way that I have opened myself up to the people who are in my circle, who I know are committed to loving me, and vice versa, I have allowed them the space to say, hey, Keith, I think you're too close to the fire. You know what I mean? That's their opinion. I might not be too close, but based on what they know about me, you know what I mean? Based on the proximity that they have to me and the relationship that we have, I think that's a healthy opinion.
Yeah, and I receive that, though. I feel like, everything is not going to be always what we want. Here's the thing, as we wrap up this, whether we do it in love or not, some people are still not going to want to be told anything. They're not going to want your opinion regardless. So I'm going to tell you right then and there, you might be saying, but I was really trying to help.
Yeah.
Some people just don't want to hear it.
Agreed.
So then you need to move on to the next person, as long as you're not making it your assignment to going around telling people stuff, because I think you have to make sure that's the assignment that God is giving you and not the assignment that you have chose to pick up.
I like that.
You want to know why I say that? That's like when people say they have gifting and stuff, and pause, I can't tell you what you have, but you can say I have the gifting to see, but you don't have the gifting to pray for me. You can see my falls, you can see what I'm doing, but did you have the gift to open up your mouth and pray for me?
Yeah.
Hold on. So this is why we have to be very mindful, because I've come a long way. Like, God had to scrape me up off the floor.
How did he get you up?
I'm telling you, he had to take some things and grab me up the floor, because that judgment came so hard sometimes, and it had nothing to do with God's love.
Yeah.
I mean, I got punched and kicked by godly people, and when I tell you, that will send people off to the ledge. You never know, and this is what I kind of want to end on. You never know what a person is dealing with. Yes, some people are not going to want to hear you anyway. Yes, we already know that. But at the same time, we just don't know what people are going through, and we have to be so cautious and mindful what we say, because when I was so glad he even was able to scrape me off, because some of y'all done judged and said some things, and I'm gonna tell you right now, y'all had no business saying to me or the next person. And now I'm in this spot. I will not be silent. I'm at the point where I can say it.
I'm gonna say something.
No, I'm gonna say something. I did not tell you that. You told yourself that, okay? My God is no different from your God. He loves me unconditionally. I may not be right all the time, but he is sure not talking about me behind my back. That is not love, and that is not the correct judgment. Yeah. So understand this, that almost pushed me in a direction where I didn't want nothing to do with God or anybody that even knew God. There came to a point in my life where you put some church music on, I'll be looking at you like, what?
Get out of
like, get, like,
turn it off.
Off. don't even want to hear nothing.
Same.
You know, because it was so hurtful by what they said. So I can imagine me, who I knew I had a calling on my life. I knew I had an assignment. I knew, you know, I was called to do something, but even I was offended. Even I was hurt. And, you know, I had to pick up the scripture, how many times you're supposed to forgive your brother. And a lot of times people go overboard. You know, we take what we want out of the word. And let's just be honest. Yes, I have to forgive you 70 times 7.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But that does not mean you should constantly keep casting out sins and having issues with people just because I got to forgive you. That ain't right either.
I'm glad you said that, right? Because we put the onus on ourselves, right? One, to constantly forgive, right? I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. They can do it a million times. I forgive you, right? I feel like that's my obligation as a believer. My other obligation, my second obligation as a believer, right? And my duty to loving God, loving myself, loving my neighbor as myself.
Yeah. My
duty in loving myself is to protect who I give access, you know, who I allow to have access to me. If I have to forgive you a million times, why do you still have, right, that type of proximity?
That's true.
You know what I mean? So I feel like my obligation to loving myself is to draw the line. You can't do that to me anymore. Right?
I agree.
You have to set boundaries. And that's why I like the fact that you said, I will not be silent, right?
No, it's over.
Speaking up in this season, I got something to say. You know,
it's over. Y'all, listen.
Chill out.
Listen, y'all don't think now this podcast was given to me by God. But seriously, now I'm not gonna be silent because we can't keep walking around saying and doing whatever we want, and then putting our church hats on our good suits or going about our business and entrepreneurship or whatever. Wherever we are thinking we're doing business and thinking that we judging and live in a certain kind of way. No. You can't listen. You will reap what you sow. And I'm not sending a message where I'm telling you that as a threat. I'm letting you know because when you do things that are not of God, things are not going to work out for you. You're going to be trying to sow seed. It says, how will you know them? By their fruit. Everything that you plant is not going to grow. Why? Because you was cussing somebody out the other day. Yeah. You was talking about their shoes. Now you don't got no money in your account. Your account got overdraft by a bill that you... Listen. God hurt himself. He don't like ugly. We understand why these sickness and things coming upon our families. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for your family because our kids suffer from what we do. And that's a whole nother topic. So if you don't judge right for you, judge right for your kids, because when you die, your kids have to be what? Still living here. And I just dislike when I hear people say, that's your mama. I said it too. Your mama. The child is nothing like their parents. But because their parents was evil, in a sense, lying, talking about people, now their kids got to grow up with that negative experience that people have on their bloodline. Do something different for your family. I'm not going to hurt no one else because I don't want nobody to come after my kids. Think about it. Like, because that stuff really affects people. Now me, God saved me, okay?
Amen.
He done took me out of those streets because if you would have caught me right, you and your kids would have got it. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't care. They would,
the whole family out.
They would have got it. I wouldn't even do the whole by myself. I'm like David up here. Give me the soul, but I'm gonna shoot as far as I can because you done mess with the wrong person. But you know the point is, it's like really just stop for a second because that is just so brutal for people to really experience that. But I like what you said. You said access.
Yes.
Access. Stop allowing people to have access. Agreed. And I stopped allowing people to have access. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say this last thing, and it's kind of this model that I've adopted for myself, right? With bountiful blessings comes bountiful boundaries. You know what I mean? I feel like you have to set boundaries in your life, right? In relationships, be they family relationships, platonic relationships, romantic relationships. I feel like in order to receive abundance of blessings, you have to have those bountiful boundaries. You know what I mean? Because sometimes people will just suck you dry, whether that's mentally, emotionally, you know what I mean? All of the things. So that's, bountiful blessings, bountiful boundaries. That's That's sort of the motto that I've adopted.
And I would like to point out, as far as judgment, when we are judging someone, the Bible, and we said this a couple times, you will know them by their fruits. So how you can really tell without really putting your mouth on it, look at a person and not look at the person just based off of what you see, but look at what is reaping from what they're sowing. So if you're around people that, you know, they might be fun and you have a good time with them, but you're around somebody that's always into something, you don't have to take much to realize maybe I should pull myself away from that. Because that right there is equaling, you know, some negative issues. Every time I'm with them, we out fighting. Every time I'm with there, like somebody money's missing. You don't need a lot to tell you, because some people are going to come up and say, well, this is why you do have to judge. Yeah, you do. And how you judge is based off of your experience seeing their fruit. If you see something, like, just like you said, don't give access. Like, to be honest with you, if I know that you would be a person, as an example, to say things that are negative or, you know, that will hurt people or constantly causing issues and like disruption, no, I can, in my spirit, rightly say, you know, this might not be the person I need to be around. Why? Right. Not because I looked at you and determined it, but because you showed me based off of those characteristics that you had that this is not. So that is also how you can judge someone, and you do it in love. And if there is someone that I'm not giving access to, understand this. There's a lot of you guys who don't have access to me. Remember, I will not be silent. But I am not going to you directly to tell you, yep, I don't want to be around you because you know you be doing this and you be doing that. I'm not doing that, because that's not love. I'm just thinking about the times that I mess up personally. And God I never ever felt like he said, hey, Jess, you know, I'm not going to talk to you or hear you because you do this. It's not like that. So I personally would not do that to someone else. You know, I say that people don't have access to me, and it's for a good reason, because sometimes you have to protect your own peace.
Absolutely.
Because when judgment or people do not judge with love, they can harm you. They can hurt you. So it's okay. Yes, it is okay. I'm saying that for me not to allow you to have access to me. Not because I don't love you, but I have to protect my peace. You know, we have to realize that some people may be guarded, and that's how we often make assumptions of people that don't talk or say nothing. Which is no, seriously, because they're like, oh, they don't talk. Well, they worried about what you're going to say and what you're going to do. I stopped talking to people too, because I don't want my words to be misconstrued. I don't want people to say something I did not say. And then another thing is, like, who do you trust? So if we're not trustworthy people, we'll never get to know who they are. We'll not be able to learn their story so we can rightly, you know, judge them and give them a chance. That's like us going to court. You know, a judge is up there. He hears both sides of the story. When we are making judgment, do we have both sides of the story? Do we have all the facts? Were we even there? Were we there? Remember that whole game we used to play where we would whisper and tell somebody, and then
the telephone game?
The telephone game. Thank you. Listen, the telephone game. That line comes completely distorted afterward because everyone has their own version. This is why I don't like judging people. I started to say, listen, I wasn't even there. Your story is really believable, but I wasn't there. And just know that you were not there with me. So when you see me and you wonder why she on this podcast, you were not there, okay? You were not there, and this is why, okay? So I have to be on here, and you will learn more about me. But understand, just because you see people on camera, just because you read their posts, doesn't mean you know them, okay?
I agree.
So we need to go down to the Father. We need to pray and ask for some real wisdom, some real knowledge, so we can really judge people the right way with love. And also just remember how you want to be treated. I think that's the sum of it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to get my timer out, because we're about to end, guys. If you are watching this, this is our last 60 seconds, where I'm going to give you 60 seconds to say whatever you want to say as we conclude. I will not be silent. Listen, I'm not ready to let go yet, because I have to stop talking myself. But I just want to thank you guys for coming on. Before we do our 60 seconds, And I want you just to keep this topic in mind as you move forward. I want you to realize that everything we do, we should do it with love. And to all my supporters, for those who I don't talk to, I still love you. I really do. It's just sometimes we have to be mindful of the things that people go through. And sometimes people are guarded because they have hurt behind them. And we want to make sure we're not inflicting those things to others that we've actually went through ourselves. And before I go, sometimes people judge based off of what is done to them. And that's a rule. Like this thing can keep going on for hours. Cause I think that's what happens. It's like a pattern. It's like a disease or something. It just keeps on going. Like we see this person is like that and the next person goes like that too. And I think we can't be like that. We have to be like God is with us, and we have to love. So now I'm about to turn my 60 seconds over. And let me just say, you got to come back, okay? Because we have so much to talk about.
So much.
This is the top of the iceberg. We're going to just have you guys ease into this podcast because I don't want y'all to go start judging people. No, I'm kidding. But we're going to let you just ease into this time. All right. I'm putting the 60 seconds down. You ready?
I don't have to use the entire 60 seconds, right?
Oh, you don't, but if you
don't go over the.
If you don't, I will. So this is why I need you to just.
I just need to look. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. We good.
Okay.
Good.
Ready? Here we go.
Yeah. So I just want to use my last 60 seconds like this, right? We talked about this idea of love versus judgment. I sort of want to end off on the love piece.
Okay.
Right. The Bible teaches us to love our neighbors as ourselves. Right. There's a bit of reverse psychology there because in order to love your neighbor the way you love yourself, you have to first love yourself. You have to first show up for yourself. And I think a huge part of that is doing the work to always constantly show up in love. I've sort of taken a step back from trying to figure out, how do I love this person? How do I love this person? How do I love that person? And sort of really focusing on how do I always constantly show up in love, right? I want to root myself in the soil of love so that whatever I do, it produces love, right? Love produces, love flows out of me. And then that's what determines how I navigate all of my relationships in a loving way, right? And it's not to say that I'm cool with everybody, right? We talked about access. It's not to say that I'm going to hang out with everybody. I will always be cordial to everybody. I will always be respectful to everybody. I will always be committed to nurturing other people's growth and effectiveness, right? In a caring way, in a way that is not meant to intend harm, right? That's how I root myself in constantly showing up in love. And therefore, my judgment or my critique will always flow from a place of love. It will always, there's no malintent, right?
I like that word.
That
sums it
that's
up, right?
that's my 60 seconds.
And it's probably
30.
longer than 60 seconds. I don't really know how long this is. I would just listen. We go figure this out eventually. I stopped the timer. But I will just say, I love what you said because your intent. Let your intent be pure. Let what you do be pure. I want the same love that God has for me. And I want to show it to you. Yeah. And I want to make sure that when I come off, that I'm coming off in love. And everything I said was in love. We were joking, but I really, it is in love, but it's truth. We have to be honest with ourselves. And this is what will bring people back to you. Is what will keep people going and uplift people. Ultimately, our goal is, especially, you and I, we're in different roles than some people, but we really have to do a good job. So leaders, if you're watching this, make sure you do a good job in people being uplifted and not harmed, because you hold a different kind of mantle. And we will talk about that next time, but we hold a different kind of mantle. And yes, it's going to be biased.
Who is this we that you speak of?
Whoever is called,
clarity,
whoever is called by God, and you are in a position of leadership.
Okay, yeah.
Now our minutes is going to mess up. If you are, apostle, prophet, seer, healer, miracle dancer, worker, bishop, all the above, missionary, teachers, preachers, because it applies to us all. people that's working behind the music and camera. Look, I got my camera guy. Listen, that's a call it. Listen, you know, you have to be in love with whatever you do, even if you're not called necessarily, you know, in this leadership role for God, but you are a customer service worker, or you know, I'm at the store and I'm trying to get a jacket. I expect you to be in love and not have an attitude with me. But that's a different story. What I'm saying is we have to be mindful, you know, so we really uplift people, because we want to draw people to us, not push them away. And everything we do with judgment, make sure we're drawing people and not okay with people leaving. People are going to leave because sometimes people don't want to do right. But that doesn't mean if they leave, they won't come back. See, we come back to God, right? We may not have liked the word, and we might not want to do what we're supposed to do, but we always somehow come back to God. Why?
Preaching.
Because
What draws us back is his love.
Love.
Never ending.
Never failing.
Unchanging, consistent, committed love.
Exactly.
Man, don't get me started.
Listen, that's what it is though. You're right. As we end, that's what it is. It's his love.
Yeah.
So we cannot be okay with people never coming back. They're not coming back to my organization. They're not coming back to my store, to my business, because whatever, it's their fault. No, we cannot be okay with that. That's a problem. If you don't see me talking to you, I want you to come find me. See, maybe why I'm not talking to you, because I might be genuinely hurt. You don't know. That person might be hurt. Not everything is because people don't want to do right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just we didn't say it right. You know, that's not God's love. The church is not empty because people don't want to get right. We in trouble too. Yeah, we in trouble.
That's a whole other conversation.
No, that is. Yeah, people gonna live their life, but if you got love, you gonna come back. I'm telling you.
That has to be another conversation.
It is. We're gonna get out of here. We finished. We just want to encourage you. If you like what you heard, please follow us at I Will Not Be Silent podcast. We are on Instagram. We will be here every third Thursday of the month, and we will be on at 7 p.m. If you have a story, feel free to reach out to us. And yes, I do have to use judgment when I'm selecting people, but it doesn't mean that I don't love you. I really want to give you guys the experience to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your stories. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time on I Will Not Be Silent.